Okay, guys, hello and welcome back to Bright Founders Talk from Temi, an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Today, guys, our new guest we've got with us on the show, Ilma Tiki, co-founder and CEO of the remote company, and a lot of other ventures behind her belt as well. So before we get started, Ilma, just in a few words for me, give the listeners something new. What is one thing about you which not many people know? Just to explain Ilma a little bit more.
Okay. Let's start with a fun fact. Good. So I was born in Soviet Union and I saw how Lithuania got independence. And since my parents couldn't afford a private tutor to teach me English, I went to Mormon church to do that.
Interesting. How old were you at this time?
10.
Interesting. So you always had that mindset that you wanted to do something, you wanted to be better, let's say, you wanted to advance yourself right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to tell with this story is that if you have a goal and you set up a goal, there are thousands of ways to reach that. And you can hack around and you can find your own shortcut or your own road to that, whatever it is. So I think for me, it's really important for people to understand there's so many different ways to build businesses, different ways to learn English. Or no matter what we take, I think it's really important to understand what suits you at this time.
Absolutely. There's always a way around it. There's always a way to find what you need to be finding. Tell me, Ilma, in regards to that, do you think you were destined to be an entrepreneur? Were you destined to kind of break the ceiling and just, go out there and not follow kind of the everyday 9 to 5?
I'm not just destined. It's more like, to begin with, I was working in the financial sector. At that point, I thought that's the only way to make money. You have to be surrounded by money, right? So it took me a while to understand there's so many different ways, to work, right? But obviously for me, I love creating my own stuff. And I'm really bad when somebody's telling me what to do. So I guess this is come, and build business.
Interesting. I see you've got a whiteboard behind you. Are you kind of like a visual thinker? Are you someone who has to write things down? Tell me, what is your kind of approach to, getting those ideas to life?
Yeah, so I have a board. I have a lot of papers around me. I do write. I think when you have a thought inside your head, it's one thing. When you write it down, especially by hand, it's already like the first act. So you're not just thinking and you're already like doing something about it, maybe even writing down the steps, what you want to do. And this autumn, I'm studying at MIT neuroscience. So this is what I have been taught as well, that you actually, if you want to if you have a goal, it's even better if you make it visual and then you hang it and see it every single day. Just like when we play games, I don't know, Tetris, let's say. When you go to sleep, you still see it, all these blocks running, right? So I think it's really important to know exactly what you want to achieve, even know what it feels like or what it looks like, because then it's much more easier to make daily choices. Whenever you see opportunity that is connected with your goal, it's much more easier to say yes or no. I think, it's even more tricky, right? So, so even my homework for MIT, one of them was to make a action vision board for me as a leader and what I want to leave as a legacy.
Interesting. That's actually one of the last questions I always ask everyone in this show. So we will definitely get back to that in a second, right at the end of the show, because that'll be interesting to listen to. Tell me, before we get into the world of everything that you're doing at the remote company and all the other ventures that you've got going on as well, tell me, what would be your recipe to making dreams come true? Aims not just be on paper, but to put them into life. What is your recipe?
Well, you have to find time to sit down and think what you actually want. So one way is just some people would just think and, they would come up with something. My way, quite often, I would meet a lot of super different people and I would see which parts I would love to have in my life and try to incorporate and see if they're mine or not, right? Because it's like, for me, just easier to get inspiration from someone else, right? But I think it starts with just you sitting down and thinking. And that's a really hard thing because we prefer hustle, to run, to do something about it,
sure.
So I think
I get distracted every 2 seconds by my phone,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I think starting to understand that we have to start with some vision or goal in mind instead of just do because everybody's doing. Or maybe you don't even need a business. You have to think why, what success is going to look like for you. Like what exactly you're looking for. Is it freedom? Is it traveling? Is it having a team? Is it an app on Product Hunt? Is it like whatever, right? So I think then it's easier to, because I told before, like making choices and saying no's and yes, and how you will build the business based on that vision that you want to achieve in, I don't know, a year or 5 years, whatever it is.
Interesting. Okay. We're going to go into more like your processes of leadership and challenges as well a little bit later on. But before we do, let's just go into the world of the remote company a little bit. Tell me, just in a few sentences, what is the remote company?
Well, it's an umbrella company because at some point, I think 3 years ago, we had 6 products and it was pretty tricky even to hire people because every time you have to talk about different product that you're building. So we decided to build the remote company. And the main thing is that all of our products and all our teams have been working remotely. Almost at the beginning of the last 10 years, we've been working remotely. And I think that's pretty unique. We had the luxury of time to learn how to do that. And it's like right now, I think it's the world's remote changed a lot. 2020, in the beginning, when we named our company the remote company, remote was, you knew exactly what you're talking about. Remote means it's remote first companies, people can work from anywhere. Right now, when companies are saying remote, you never know. It might be that you have to be in the same city. It might be that you have to be in the office on Thursdays. So I think right now I would go with the phrase distributed team because our team is based in 40 countries in 14 different time zones. So it's another layer, right? It's not just remote in one country or one city. It's actually like super global, very international. And and we have so many different professional and personal experiences.
Tell me, what inspired you to co-found the remote company, and how did your previous experience with MGAlight, how did it influence this venture?
It's a very personal story in a way that I can't find it because it was my life partner as well. So he's a designer. Another partner, he is more like product person. And myself, I was always passionate about people. So I was helping with all the culture and everything about marketing for MGAlight and for all other companies as well. So it was kind of the thing, because we're living together. At that point, I was actually working with art, digital art. So I thought just, I can come and help. And then I stayed.
Okay. What kind of, from building a global brand like MGAlight is obviously a small feat. What key lessons did you learn from kind of that experience in order to better foot the remote company?
Well, I like talking about upside down funnel. We usually think about marketing funnel when you shout on the street, somebody can hear you, then some people will approach you, then you're pitching your product or service, and some of them will buy, right? My idea was that I want, first of all, to take care of our current customers because it's a subscription-based business, right? So it means I not only want to attract new customers, but the main thing is just I want the ones who came to stay with us, right? So for me, it was since we have to take care of them, why not to give them tools to kind of spread love and ask for a review or whatever it is, right? So I think this is, for a long time, I was on my own doing marketing for 6 years maybe. So I had to be really efficient and thinking how could I use multipliers effect, right? So whatever I would do, I would think 3 other ways to use the same content or different ways to get content without me writing it, right? Yeah. And then another thing is I know that competition is important, but I think it's easier to bring interesting practices from different industries. Sometimes, I was really inspired by some of the hotels because I think some of them, they have the best customer support. So just watching them and even reading about them, and this is how we kind of made our customer support that is doing 24/7 and in less than 5 minutes they answer any request, right? Just because I understood that it's something that people will always appreciate. It's not like short-term stuff, right? It's something, in our case, we always bootstrap. So that's another thing, right? I think when you spend your own money, you're really thinking what you want to do. And this is why you never go with viral video, right? You would always do something that will bring long-term, value, and it's evergreen and so on and so forth. So I even have like ratings of my ideas. Like I would put down all my ideas in one list, and then I will rate them based on, I think, 3 criteria. It's like one, is it fast or slow? The second one, can I do it on my own, or do I need anyone helping me? It might be people from my team. It might be somebody I need to outsource, right? Then if it's, it will be like long-term value, or just maybe this month and that's it. And the last one would be if customers would notice that, or is it something that is, I don't know, right? And then I would give ratings from 1 to 5, and then I would multiply. And this is why how like sometimes it would be like a shortcut for me. What should I start? Because sometimes as founders, we have millions of ideas and you have no idea where to start. So I think it's good. We don't have to use my criteria, right? But I think it's good to understand what you want to achieve.
Sure.
And be like really precise about it, because then it's just easier to make what to do next.
Very interesting, actually. Very helpful for the people listening as well. Because as I said before we press play today, that we've got a lot of guys and girls that are looking to get into the startup world. So it's really useful for them. And actually on customer service, quite recently, I had an issue with Instagram. For some reason, couldn't get back onto it. Instagram hasn't even got a customer service. They've just got a, like a FAQ kind of page. Can I help you with this? And it creates such like anger, basically, that you just can't get an answer and help. So definitely those 5 minutes replies are incredibly valued. I've seen you've got a new book out. So Leaving the Base Camp sounds very intriguing. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So as I told you before, I was born in Soviet Union. I learned American English for moments, right? I learned a lot of business lessons, by the way, which that was another way for me to open up doors and see like world that maybe I don't belong, maybe I do belong, maybe I want to belong, right? So like I was always I'm still thriving on meeting people from super different sectors and industries and whatever. And then I always had a goal. So like for me, it was like I was really creative.
Right.
And I'm still creative when I have like boundaries and limits, because you're always thinking how to, push through, how to make it,
so true.
Yeah. And the day when I discovered that I'm pregnant was the day when Ignas, my partner, discovered that we're not getting any investment. So that was another kind of decision, right? That we're going to take care of our customers, we're going to be profitable, and we're going to skip investors altogether. Like there's no, we didn't have time to convince them that email marketing is not that. But then at a certain point, we did really well. I mean, we were profitable, we had a team of less than 20 people, we had our kid, we were traveling around the world. And I think this is when I felt I reached the base camp. And I think we stayed there at least 5 years. And what I mean by it is that this is a comfort. It's much more easier to be creative and to challenge yourself and to hitchhike and do whatever when you have nothing to lose. Or you have a big goal, but then you try and get everything to achieve it. Mm-hmm. And it's very tricky when you're in comfort, because this is how our brain is kind of wired, right? We kind of 2 times more scared to lose something instead of, we want to gain something, because it's like a risk, right? So for me, living at base camp is a place where you're comfortable enough, and you might stay and you might not even notice that you're already going backwards, because it's okay, right? Another thing with the base camp is that, we can reach base camp on your own. You might be like a great freelancer, for example, right? But then if you want to climb a big mountain, quite often you do need team. And team is a tricky thing, because it's people with different personalities, with a lot of stuff going on, right? So for me, there was a certain point when I met a performance coach, and he asked me, why am I afraid to grow my company? And then I started talking about all the stories that I hate corporations, I've been there. I'm a founder, I want to sleep well, like care about my mental health and so on. But they're like all the things that I had in my mind. So I think for the new founder, so any founder, I think it's really important to be aware that their inner insecurities and fears most probably are reflected on business. And so for me, that question was like a kick in the ass. What do something about it?
Are these kind of like excuses to yourself that we're telling ourselves? Yeah, excuses as to why we need to stay in the base camp.
Like stay in the base camp, or like you have like all the stories around why, like why different this versus that, why we are better, why like. I mean, I would collect so many examples of people who are doing something similar, right? So I think, we are smart people. We can always find arguments about the decisions we made, right? Afterwards, we made a decision, right? So I think for me, I understood that for me, the inner insecurities and fears was the reason why we didn't grow as a business, because I was afraid that growing means me losing something that is important, or me like, I don't know. So it started actually with working on me personally. And when I was ready, then I kind of announced that now we start growing. And even with this, by the way, because we stayed like the same size for a long time, even this was tricky. We had a meeting in Panama City because we're working remotely. So we meet once or twice a year. So when the whole team is coming. So we came to Panama City and everybody had to do a presentation how to grow, just to challenge our mind. This is when we realized that we can grow 10 times because like our technology is not ready. If we would have 10 times more customers, everything, we're going to crash. So I think it's interesting, and from like, that was the point when we made a lot of big decisions. We decided to rewrite the whole code, and it lasted much longer than we would ever anticipated. But this is when we started building new product. This is how you stay curious, right? And so just
that's really interesting.
Notice what you're thinking and notice what stories you keep repeating.
So what was it the moment that was it the mentor that was the wake up call and the kick up, the ask basically, that made you start thinking that I need to leave my base camp? But can you become in your base camp quite quickly, or does it take a year, 2, 3, 4, 5? How quick can a base camp be formed?
I don't know. I think it depends on the personal situation, right? And, I think sometimes it's hard to notice that you're already in the base camp. Maybe sometimes you meet somebody from outside that doesn't know you and won't say, oh my God, you're like, because at that point, most people would say I was successful, right? So you need somebody from outside to tell that. But at the same time, when you already like, when you want to notice, most probably you will be better at noticing that, oh my God, like I'm so comfortable. Like, so I think, right,
interesting.
Because right now I'm, a year ago, we moved from Lithuania to New York City, and it's obviously uncomfortable, right? But I felt that if we won't do anything, then we're going to stay in the way we are. And, we are not challenging ourselves. So in this case, it's not even business, that much like business, like personal circumstances, right? But it's still very different to be like in different country, in different states.
Sure. We will talk about, I want to know about the difference between Lithuanian kind of mindset and maybe the American mindset and all this in a little bit. But before we do, you did and have traveled over 40 countries with your son. Obviously, a unique experience. But how has this global exposure influenced your perspective on business and on life?
Yeah, when our son was born, we decided that we're going to spend every winter somewhere warm, and every time it was in different country, different continent. So
nice.
That's why how we managed to see lots of different places.
So
I think
a person of warm weather. Yeah.
I mean, I think it doesn't. It's not even weather. Quite often we combine traveling with art because I still love contemporary.
Okay.
So that's another way for me actually to go out of my comfort zone, because especially contemporary art, it might be really uncomfortable sometimes. So if you want to go, if you want to build like new neurons and new connections in your brain, So I think I always advise to go to the contemporary exhibition, because most probably going to see something that you don't get at all. And I think it's good for our creativity.
Every time.
I know. So I think it's similar with traveling as well. This is how you challenge your own perspectives to life and what's possible and how people live. For me, it was important. I think it's part of education, and I wanted my kids to get that kind of education. I wanted to see him, even like wild animals in wild, because I never wanted him to go to zoo, just to appreciate nature more and so on. I think, traveling, even though we stayed longer than a normal tourist would, you are still traveling, so it's a bit different. You don't meet so many local people. Maybe you don't make really deep connections. I think I learned much more with my team rather than traveling, because having a team from so many different countries is something that you're not just, it's not even about curiosity. You have to work together, and that's a big deal. And they might have very different assumptions how work should be done and so on. So I think I learned much more just having a global team. I think it's important especially when you're building a global.
Definitely learning of them. But in regards to, obviously, you're saying you're in New York now. You're from Lithuania. I'm not sure if you said your life partner as well is from Lithuania. Got a name as if he's from Lithuania, I think. So how do you kind of compare the mindsets between Lithuanians and Americans? Everyone knows Americans are known for the American dream, the go out and get it, not stop and go do or die, basically. How do you compare it to the Lithuanian mindset?
Well, I think American Dream is a Hollywood production. So I think it did a great job selling it to the world. So everybody knows American Dream, but most probably everybody has something different in their mindset, what they want to achieve and how. Obviously, we are very different just from the market perspective. Europe is very divided because we have so many different countries with different languages. So it's really hard to conquer country by country. Whereas here, just because you're doing everything in English and all the states speak the same language, and then you can enter Canada, and most probably all other English markets will join. So I think this part it has two ways, right? So one is that because Lithuania has 1.5 million people, it means that your starting point often is already
That's it,
global.
1.5. Wow.
Yeah. So it means that you're already thinking about global perspective. And being from Europe, we started with 7 different languages just because we were based in Europe, right? So we had partners in, France and in Sweden and elsewhere. But at the same time, this is how we had 24/7 customer support, because for us, world is the world, right? For Americans, sometimes when they say the world, is still United States. So I think it meant that we were more inclusive to Australian customers because they would get customer support as well. Yeah, but I think right now the young generation, because everything is on the internet, so there's less and less differences. It's and everybody's following the same people on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube.
Yep.
Everybody's listening to the same podcasts and so on. So I think it's not that different. And I think we still have a lot of we want to hustle, we want to build something big. We're still learning a lot. And obviously another thing is maybe connections and networking is that I don't have any classmates in, New York Times. And you might, because you studied in America. So, but they're more minor thing, I would say, when you're creative, when you're entrepreneur, you just hustle.
Yeah, for sure, you'll find a way. If you found a way to learn English like that when you were 10, you'll definitely find a way, Ilma. Ilma, with regards to selling MGAlight, you sold it for $90 million, which obviously is a significant achievement. What led to the decision to sell, and how did that kind of impact your entrepreneurial journey with the remote company?
My master's is in economics, so I understand about the cycles in economy. And I knew that there was a point in 2021 when it was the best time to either raise money or sell something. And then another thing that we got a proposal from company that we trust. And I think that was a really great deal. I'm still actually MGAlight. Both me and our management team, they have huge impact, and most probably going to have even a bigger one with a company that's MGAlight, because the product team as well, they have different products in Central Europe. I think we complement each other really well because they're like much more bigger, working with enterprises in Europe. In our case, we are targeting small and medium businesses around the world. I think we have 1.5 million businesses using MGAlight right now. So I think it was just the right fit, right time and right fit, because it wasn't something that was on my vision board, and we didn't even thought about selling it. It was just happened.
Just happened.
Happened.
The right time, right place. Absolutely. Ilma, tell me, in the last question I got for you, I always give this question to our speakers on the show, and I know we touched on it right at the beginning, about your legacy. What do you want your legacy to be then?
I do believe that in the world we do need more like diverse companies. Me being born in a country that is not like a lucky country to be born at, like occupied country, right? I still believe how important it is to give a chance to everyone to use the talent, no matter where they are born. And I think this is where remote work and distributed teams come into place. World is full of talent. And I think and at the same time, the issues that the world is facing, they are all global issues. So I think having people from all over the world working on one product, whatever it is, it's really, really important, because sometimes we are guessing, right, what others, feel or whatever, right, and how they think or how they see the world. But when you have conversations and when you work together, this is when you actually know each other. So at the same time, I think it's really important to understand how insecure we are when we are in comfort, and kind of take these healthy risks. And this is the reason why I wrote the book. This is the reason why I'm doing conversation with you, right? Because the thing right now, even that conversation about remote work, it's all about the offices. Are you coming back or not? But I think that's much more that we have to touch upon. So one is like distributed teams. Another one is females working as well, right? Another thing is like even healthy families. It's much more easier to be a healthy and happy family when both parents are working from home, rather than both parents are traveling and nannies at home, right? Absolutely. So I think after COVID, in general, it's a great time to stop and rethink what could be done differently, what we want to, use from ages ago, what we want to create, and how we can recreate it. And so I think that's, even for me, it's still hard to stop and reflect, but book was a great way for me to do that, because it was COVID times, and I was just sitting, thinking what actually impacted me and why I did, and why I made certain decision. Yeah. So I think now it's a great time for everyone to stop and reflect a bit.
You've reminded me that I need to do it as well. In my life, I think we all need to do it. And I am definitely going to grab a copy of your book as well, Leaving the Base Camp, because I think incredibly useful, is really difficult in this world that we live in, fast pace, next task, where it's difficult to sit down and think about it. But you have been my reminders today, so thank you very much. Hopefully the reminder for our listeners as well. Thank you for coming on, Ilma.
Thank you so much.